Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Autumn and today I'm going to be reviewing all the books I read in March. So to start off, the first book I read was actually, I listened to an audiobook called Just Another Missing Person by Gillian McAllister. This book follows a detective named Julia, and she's trying to solve a missing person case of 22-year-old Olivia who goes missing one night from her college dorm. So we are following Julia trying to solve this missing person case, and as she's trying to kind of go along with the clues, she realizes that there's a little bit more to this case than she thought, and there are some people trying to involve her and kind of her family. So she's trying to protect her family and herself while also trying to solve this case and get justice for this girl. So it kind of gets in like a tangled web, and there's a lot of twists that I didn't really see coming, but they weren't that good, to be honest with you. I really loved Wrong Place, Wrong Time by this author, but this book just did not hit. I felt like I did not really care about the characters. I feel like the mystery wasn't that exciting. So for that reason, I gave this book 3 stars. Honestly, I feel like that's a pretty high rating from me for this book because I don't really remember much of it. So I don't think I would honestly recommend this mystery unless you absolutely love this author. So yeah, I hope the next time I read one of her books, it's better than that one. And then the next book I read was One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. This is one of her backlisted books, so I thought I would give it a read. It is about Emma Blair, who marries her high school sweetheart named Jessie. And one day, Jessie kind of goes missing from a helicopter crash. So we are following the after events of that and how Emma copes and kind of moves on with her life. She ends up meeting someone else named Sam, and while she's in a relationship with Sam, like years down the road, she receives a call from none other than Jessie saying that he is in fact alive. So we are kind of following the past timeline of how Emma and Jessie met and what their life was like before he went missing, and then also how Emma is dealing with this newfound information that her husband is in fact alive, but she's now fallen in love with Sam, and kind of what the heck is she going to do because she thought her husband was dead. I loved this book. I thought it was so interesting to read. I really enjoyed Emma as a main character. Her emotions and the way she reacted to all the information she was given was honestly very raw, and it felt appropriate. Sam is such a sweetheart, and I think anyone in this situation would just be absolutely traumatized that the love of their life may not in fact be the love of their life. So I really enjoyed this book. I gave this book 4 stars. It just did not feel like a 5-star read, but I really was happy with the outcome of this book, and I would definitely recommend for anyone who loves Taylor Jenkins Reid, or just if you like a romance that's a little bit different than your average romance, this is definitely the book to read. I did watch the movie for this book. I don't know what type of budget they had, but it felt like they had a budget of $5 because that was the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. It was so bad. The actors were so bad. There was no chemistry at all. And I just wish I never watched that movie because it does taint this book a little bit, unfortunately. So if you read this book, please, please, please do not watch the movie because it is atrocious. It is so bad. The next book I read, I actually listened to this one as well, His and Hers by Alice Feeney. I really like Alice Feeney as an author. She does really good psychological thrillers. However, some of the storylines and plot twists that she have are a little bit icky almost and make me really uncomfortable to read about. So kind of go into this with that being said. So we are following Anna Andrews, who is a newscaster journalist in this town, and she is trying to report on the death of a woman that happens in this very like wealthy small community, so a murder is kind of unexpected here, and so she's reporting on the case, and her ex-husband, Detective Jack, is also trying to solve the mystery and the crime. However, both of these people are involved and related in some way to the murder case, and they know more than they're willing to let on at first. So we are kind of following them and looking at the misinformation they're providing and trying to figure out if either of them murdered this individual or how exactly this is all related. We do get both his and hers point of views, which I really liked. However, like I said, I was loving this book until we kind of get a part of Anna's past, and it was so icky and unexpected, and it just made me really uncomfortable to listen to. So because of that, I didn't give it a 5-star. I honestly think that if some of the stuff wasn't as icky and discomforting, I would have rated this book higher. It's just a little bit too much for me. So I believe I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. There were multiple murders that kind of happened, and the stakes just keep getting higher and higher, and we see Anna interact with her ex-husband, Jack, and you kind of start rooting for them both, but you don't really know if they're good or not, which was really exciting and interesting to read about. And honestly, the plot twist at the end did have me. I had not expected that at all. So I would definitely recommend this as a psychological thriller. And there is a Netflix show that just came out, I think, quite recently, and I did end up watching it. I actually really liked the way that they did the TV show. I think I would recommend watching the TV show. They do kind of totally change like the last plot, they don't change the last plot twist, but they do change kind of like the whole action scene that happens at the end. So that was a little bit irritating because the way that the mystery was solved was not as satisfying in the TV show versus in the book. But I would definitely recommend watching the TV series after reading the book. The next book I read was Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. This book has been sitting on my TBR for years. I literally got this book as soon as it came out, whenever it came out, and I loved the cover. I heard it was like a Little Women-esque retelling, and that's literally all I needed to know. And I am so glad I finally read this book. It was this close to being a 5-star, 4.5 stars. I love this book. It is so good. We are following 4 sisters and William Waters. So we are following Julia, who is the oldest sibling, and then Sylvie, and we're following the twin sisters as well, Cecilia and Emmeline. So the 4 of them, we start with them as young girls, and we kind of watch their life unfold as they get older. They are a very close-knit sibling group. They are kind of in pairs. So Cecilia and Emmeline, because they're twins, they're a little bit closer, and Julia and Sylvie, because they're the 2 oldest sisters, they're also kind of a pair, but all together they're very close. And we kind of watch them grow up, and we see how William's introduction to this family impacts the relationships of these sisters and inevitably alters their life forever. The writing was absolutely beautiful. I think that the storytelling was enough, more than enough, to keep me reading. It's a very slow kind of progression, but so interesting and intricate. And we get 3 point of views in this book, and I loved all of them. One of them definitely can be a little bit more irritating to read, but considering the way that these sisters grew up and their individual personalities, all the point of views are understandable, and the actions that each sister takes and makes is quite understandable. Like, it's not as frustrating as one would think. I almost cried, but I didn't. I just didn't get that 5-star feeling, but I think if anyone is interested in sibling relationships, family dynamics, and you like to read fiction, this is definitely a book I would recommend. I don't really want to say anything more about it because I think it's best to kind of go into this book blind, just knowing that it's about sisters and this guy named William. I don't really think that knowing anything more is helpful. I honestly think it kind of spoils all the little tiny surprises that you get in this book. So don't watch too many in-depth reviews of this book. Please just pick it up and read it. I promise it is worth your time. And I definitely love this book. The next book I read was Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. So this is a very popular thriller book that's out right now, following a family of 4 that live on a small island off of Antarctica, and they are protecting this seed bank. And so it is a dad, a single father with 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. And one day this woman gets rescued by them and washes up on shore. And they are trying to figure out why the heck she is kind of there, how she got to their island, and what she wants, because she's not saying everything that she kind of should be. There's a lot of hidden information, and they're also hiding things from her. So both sides are trying to figure out what the other person is doing without necessarily being truthful to each other. I wasn't sure how I would feel about this book, but I absolutely loved it. I believe I gave this book 4 stars. It was unlike any thriller I've ever read. It almost read like a fiction book, but it was a little bit more eerie than that. So I would absolutely recommend, if you like fiction or kind of a mystery thriller aspect. This book had multiple point of views, which I love. I did like the audiobook because every point of view had a different voice actor, which was super awesome. I did not expect this book to end the way that it did, which always makes for a very good thriller. So I don't want to say anything more about it. There was a lot that I learned about just nature and ecology in this book that I found really fascinating. And I feel like this book was well researched in that aspect as well. So that was kind of a nice subtle surprise. And yeah, I would definitely recommend this book. I don't want to really say anything else besides that. The next book I read was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. This book I read on my Kindle, and I really like Catherine Center. I feel like a lot of her books that I've read have been kind of between a 4.5 stars. Unfortunately, this book was a 2.5 stars. It was just kind of sort of really painful to read. This book is a romance, and we are following Sadie, who suddenly gets facial blindness. So she can see everything fine, but she cannot distinguish faces. She has to go off by other information, other tells, what they're wearing, how they walk, how they sound, that kind of thing. And so she's trying to navigate life with this newfound diagnosis, and she is an artist, so that causes a lot of trouble for her because she is a portrait artist. However, Sadie is just so irritating. I feel like I've not read a female main character who is like this irritating and I feel like dumb in a long time. She just was like, I don't need anyone's help. I can do it by myself. Poor me. So it was like you're complaining about not being able to do all the things that you want to do, but people offer you help and you're not accepting it and you're just being stubborn. It was so irritating to read about. Like, she was constantly offered help by a close friend, another guy that she met, and even some family members that were trying to come back in her life, and she just kept saying no to everyone and making herself more miserable. And it was making me miserable because I was like, girl, you are putting yourself in this situation. You're making your life even harder than it needs to be, and you are overreacting to every little thing. So I felt like she was a very annoying character, and so because of that, it was really hard for me to read this book. I really liked the male love interest. I thought he was amazing and so understanding, so patient with Sadie. And I feel like he could have just done better than her. Like, I have no idea why he was attracted to her, because all of their interactions were like absolutely painful. And I feel like if that happened in real life, there's no way the guy would stick around and be like, yeah, I just met you, you're absolutely crazy, but I'll stick around and see what happens. Like, no. So because of that, this book was a 2.5 stars. I would not recommend this book if you like romance. Please don't read it. And then the last book I read in the month of March was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I am so late to the bandwagon on this. I cannot believe I have not read this series, because it is like the epitome of the cute little fantasy world that you picture when you're a kid. It has fairies, goblins, all of the other mystical creatures that I can't name. And I loved the setting of this book so very much. We are following Jude, who is a mortal in the fairy world, and she is trying to navigate kind of how she wants her life to be. She wants to be a knight, but she is just a human girl, and that is not a widely accepted thing in fairy. They kind of use and abuse humans there. So she is struggling to kind of make a name for herself, and she is a very fierce, ferocious girl, and she will not take no for an answer. She definitely talks back. She has that like teenage attitude where she likes to rebel and just kind of do what she wants, but it was really fun to read about. And there is a love interest, Carden, but like honestly, I feel like in this book there was like hardly any romance subplot at all. We were mostly just following Jude and her trying to like win a place in like the High King's court, and that's pretty much it. I feel like the romance is probably gonna blossom more in the other books in this series, so I would say go into this one just thinking it's a fantasy, not necessarily like a romantasy or anything like that, but I would absolutely recommend. I feel like I'm reading it at the perfect time in spring. Like, it just feels like such a spring-esque book. I love our female main character. I like a lot of the side characters. Some of them are really annoying, but like it really balances all the individuals because they all feel different. And she has a twin sister named Taryn, and like they could not be more different. So I really like that, because I feel like if they were too similar, then they'd be interchangeable, and I wouldn't really prefer one over the other or think that Jude is capable of things that Taryn is not, and vice versa. And Carden gets a little bit of a spotlight in this book, but honestly not much until kind of the later half of this book. I feel like mostly Jude is the person we're focusing on, but the end of this book had me. Like, the plot twist was so good. I kind of had an inkling of what was going to happen, but when it did, I was still like, oh my goodness. And I was reading this at work and I literally gasped, and my coworkers just looked at me and started laughing because I was just so into this book. I absolutely loved it. I will definitely be continuing with the series in April. So yeah, those are the 7 books I read in the month of March. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one soon.